Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker and I continue to just dive right into the goaltending free agent mess that is about to be upon us. The draft is just 5 days away, but leading up to this draft, there are so many aspects that need to be addressed, and goaltending is certainly one of them. And we know that the draft has almost become the new trade deadline. Like, yeah, we see some good deals at the trade deadline here and there, but generally the draft is where some significant things happen because teams have so much more cap space to play with because they have that extra 10% bubble, and they're not worried about all the little extras that you're worried about during the regular season, the things that you're going to run into. So right now, pretty much it's fair to say that like anything could happen at this draft. It's going to be a weirder draft because the salary cap's staying the same. We don't know when the regular season's going to start. We haven't seen any of these kids play in the playoffs, at least, in their final year in juniors before potentially coming to the NHL. Some of these guys are back playing in their European leagues. Like, the draft's going to be crazy, but we need to finish out our final, 10 teams. We've been going alphabetical order, so in the last 2 episodes, you can go back and listen to those for all the goalies through those teams and what they're going to do. And then we're going to start on the Flyers and finish out today. And with that said, Justin, the Philadelphia Flyers and their goaltending situation leading up to this draft, what are they going to do about this backup position? That's pretty much the only question, right? Like, Carter Hart's the man. And
yeah, that's you're spot on. Obviously, their mindset might be more on getting Carter Hart extended versus signing him a backup because, let's face it, there's going to be a plethora of goaltenders, and they don't have to rush into signing somebody because, let's face it, I think at the end of the day, after the first couple days of free agency, there'll still be plenty of goaltenders left. So I'm sure right now their priority is maybe trying to get an extension done with Hart before any sort of free agency rolls around. However, when it comes to other goaltenders besides him, obviously there's Brian Elliott, who is going to be UFA. I think personally he's going to re-sign there. He seemed like a good fit, and
he played well.
Yeah, and I think too. I think Philly probably has sort of grown a relationship between him and Hart, and I think they'd probably like to continue that. And to be quite honest, Philly, they're limited on cap space. There's been rumors of them trying to move somebody like Shane Gostisbehere to free up some cap space, and they got some other pieces they need to get re-signed. And so Elliott's a guy who they can bring in on the cheap as a backup. They can sign him for $750,000 and say, here's another year. Let's see what you got again.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Flyers are gonna probably come. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and I think that they only are able to, for their sake, hopefully build upon what they were able to do this season, where they, unexpectedly, towards the very top of that Metropolitan Division, doing it well. And we've talked about it all year long, such a good group of veterans and youngsters, and you don't have to look further than that goaltending position with what they have. So the Flyers are an easy one. The Penguins are one of the more complicated ones. They are the next one on our list. The Pittsburgh Penguins, we know that one or both, or who knows, somebody's leaving, whether it be Matt Murray or Tristan Jarry, probably depending on who can garner a better return. And at this point, it seems like Matt Murray's probably the guy on the outs. I don't know what you think he's worth, but I'm curious to find out.
Yeah, I think obviously they're seeking a first round pick, but I ultimately think in the end they're probably not going to get it because, again, I think the market is dictating that there's so much.
Yeah, there's too much out there.
Yeah, there's too many goaltenders out there where your demand just can't be that high at this point. If you want to shred that situation and start over and bring in, obviously, Jarry, make him the starter there, and let's not forget they still have DeSmith signed for a couple more seasons at 1.25. So
he's serviceable, but I think you'd love to. I mean, maybe in an ideal world, are you just hoping that you could bring back Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry and just like do what so many good teams across the league have done and just split time between two goalies?
Yeah, and I mean that is an option for them, right? They can still get an arbitrator in there. They can,
Well, I mean, neither one of them has played a full season.
No.
So, I mean, Matt Murray more so, he's definitely had more time in the net, more time to evaluate him, and he does have those 2 Stanley Cups. But
yeah, I mean, if you qualify him,
there's like a little bit of an asterisk on those, right?
No, absolutely. And I think even if they do qualify him, that's still $4 million that I'm sure they probably don't want to spend on a 1B.
Yeah, I mean, of course they're going to qualify him if they haven't traded him by whatever the date is that
right.
they have to do that by. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to lose him for nothing. But my thought though is, you're right. Why would you give a first round pick for a guy who he's 26 years old? He's an RFA. He's got one more year, and then he's a UFA. If he were to sign a 1-year deal, he'd be a UFA. So now you're digging into his UFA years. So okay, how many years do you want to give Matt Murray? I mean, he hasn't exactly proven that he is somebody that you want to give like 6 years to.
No, I think if, like, for instance, we keep hearing Edmonton, is
like a 3-year deal or something.
I think 3 is probably the most I'm going to give a guy like this because, again, if you go and sign him to long term, he's probably going to want more money because the idea is as a team, when you bring in a guy like this, that he's going to bounce back.
Sure.
But as a team too, and a GM,
you have to be,
you have to be cautious and say, okay, we'll give you a couple years, we'll give you 3 years. We're not going to give you a ton of money. Go out and prove it. And then guess what? You're still 29 years old. You're still in the prime of your career. So we'll give you the 5 or 6 years after that if you.
The hard part is that there's no guarantee that he stays, especially in a place like Edmonton. Like I feel like there's no other place in the league, maybe like a Winnipeg, where you can trade for a guy, you can hope he'll stick around and sign, but you just never know if somebody wants to stay there.
Like it's hard to keep star players.
Yeah. So then you're thinking, all right, do I want to trade a first round pick for, let's say, 2 to 3 years, 4 max for a goalie when there are so many other options available?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think teams are going to be hesitant for sure. And ultimately,
who knows if he's even, is he going to come in and actually be an actual starter?
Right.
Somebody who can play and stay healthy and play 50 games. I mean, or at least, I think if you're trading for him, you're hoping he plays at least 45 for you, right?
I think that's the idea. You want a 1A, 1B situation. You're not looking for this guy to play 60 games.
No, you don't need it. I mean, hardly anybody, almost nobody wants a goalie to play 60 games anymore.
That's very true. So ultimately, I think he gets, me. I still think Chicago is the best fit for him. However, that's again, I don't really think that's probably going to happen. There's still some talks that they're going to bring back Crawford. Now I keep hearing some other names thrown around too, but I don't even want to get into that at this point because I just think that would be the best fit for a team like that that's still trying. Because when we talk about those 2-3 years of term that you're willing to give a guy like Matt Murray, I think that's really for Chicago like their best opportunity because that's really where their window is now because Taves and Kane are free agents after 3 years, and I think this team is probably going to disintegrate, and who knows where they're going to be.
You're going to be rebuilding back. I mean, and it's not to say that Taves or Kane don't re-sign there, but they're definitely not. They're going to be in their late 30s at that point. It's not going to be the same. Our next team, I actually want to kind of bleed in from the Penguins because we haven't talked a lot about the San Jose Sharks trading for a goaltender or acquiring a goalie, but Martin Jones, perhaps the worst starter in the NHL last year and maybe even the year before, he's just not a good starter, and they're relying on him far too much. Aaron Dell showed him up. That's how poor he played. It's not to say that the team in front of him played really well, though, but I don't think that Martin Jones is worth that $5.75 million cap hit. Unfortunately, you're stuck with him for another 4 years, but does San Jose need to address this goaltending situation? Do they need to bring in someone like Matt Murray? Could they afford, obviously not a first-round pick, but can they afford maybe to, or do they need to go out and spend to bring in someone like Matt Murray or, whatever free agent, so many free agent goaltenders out there, but Matt Murray could be a guy who could come into San Jose and play well.
Yeah, you know what? I don't mind Matt Murray going into San Jose because, again, I think I still like San Jose as a team. I still think they're a bubble playoff team, but
they had a really weird year,
right? And
so many injuries,
I do think they're going to bounce back and be a lot more competitive, and they won't be at the bottom of the league. But
bring in Henrik Lundqvist.
I mean, you could, but we'll get into him a little bit later, but because I have a spot for him in mind.
You said Colorado, didn't you?
I said that was a possibility,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
But I
Got another one.
Yeah. I got another one where I think I would love to see him. And it's more my heart than my brain telling me that. But anyways, I ultimately think San Jose is going to be a team that, yes, they want to bring in another guy, somebody else to push Martin Jones, because ultimately I don't think Aaron Dell is capable of playing more than 20 games and being competitive. He was okay last year, especially considering the team in front of him at a .907 save percentage through 33 games. That's great, but ultimately at 31 years old, you got a guy who is probably, going to be like a number 3 goaltender ultimately in a system is where he best fits. And so I think maybe they re-sign him, but they get him on a team-friendly deal where they can bury him in the minors if they want to. But I think San Jose is going to be patient. I think this team is going to wait out the goaltending market, see where things go after a couple weeks. And ultimately, I think with the crop of veteran goaltenders like Jimmy Howard, Mike Smith, all these guys that are available that have been starters in the past, you could get them for dirt cheap. Just wait out a little bit.
It's an attractive place to go live.
Yes.
Albeit a very expensive place to live. So it's hard to say, hey, come play here for $700,000 or whatever. But again, when you talk about veteran guys, most of these guys have made their money, so they don't really, they're not looking for big deals anyways. So they just want to play. Okay, yeah, San Jose. San Jose is such an odd. They were such an odd team this last year. Will Joe Thornton come back? That's a big question mark. They've, Kevin LeBlanc's probably the biggest re-signing that they need to make happen, who's an RFA.
Yeah, and he's the guy that they kind of doing a 1-year deal because they were like, yeah, we're going to pay you out after you sign another 1-year deal because they didn't have the cap space to do it last year. And
there's no way. You're not paying him big money.
No,
I don't think that was ever the expectation.
Daniel Cleary'd him where they promised him big money after he.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he went from a 51-point season to a 31-point season, and that's just kind of is what it is.
Sucks, yeah.
He scored his obligatory 7 goals, though.
It's obligatory.
he's had 7 goals 3 different seasons.
That's ridiculous.
There's a fun fact about Joe Thornton. Okay, let's continue going. St. Louis Blues. Jake Allen is gone. Jordan Binnington is the guy. Any thoughts on who they may bring in to back him up? Because I think he is a number 1 goalie in the league. Yeah. They don't need to 1A, 1B it, but nice to have somebody who can play 30 games.
No, yeah, absolutely. I agree. Obviously, Binghamton's going to get an extension here at some point. They've got Husso in the minors. He's got 2 more years at $750. I think they want to give him a few games. So they're going to, I don't want to say they're going to have like a 3-headed monster, but they're going to probably find opportunities for this kid to come in and get some experience. So with that said, I think they're probably going to go, again, kind of go the veteran route, sign a guy. And to me, I actually like Jimmy Howard in this spot.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because it's cheap, it's easy. You've got a guy who was a starter.
He can't be as bad as he was last year, right?
Well, that's the thing.
And he's not playing for the worst team ever.
Yes, and I do think, too, and the other thing when you're looking at a guy like Jimmy Howard is you're expecting him to get injured at some point, right? Because that's been his MO lately. So if you're St. Louis, you're like, okay, well, if he gets injured, we get the opportunity to get this guy some experience, who we want to get some experience. Yeah. But then we still get a veteran guy backing up Binghamton.
Yeah, they're going to be so much more worried about re-signing Pietrangelo. I know it sounds like he's going to test the market. Who knows what's going to happen there ultimately? But if he leaves, you're left with Justin Falk, Colton Parayko. It's pretty good. Marco Scandella's all right, and then you've got Gunnarsson, Bertuzzo, Vince Dunn. You're not in awful shape, but certainly losing Pietrangelo,
that's a huge hit.
It hurts. Yeah. It hurts. Now, for how long would it hurt? Is Pietrangelo going to be this good in 3 years? Probably not. He'll still be a top pairing defenseman, but
will he be a top 10 defenseman?
We'll see how much he goes and signs for. I know there's a lot of talk about Toronto, but I don't know how was Toronto going to sign someone else to $8.5 million, $9 million.
If they want Pietrangelo in there, Nylander's gone, and so that would be interesting for sure.
It's got to be.
It's got to be him.
Or you're getting rid of like Morgan Riley and just calling it good.
Maybe. Maybe you're talking about shaking things up. So there it is.
No. Okay. The Tampa Bay Lightning just won the Stanley Cup. So their goaltending situation though really is just Vasilevsky. There's
not a bad backup with McElhinney there, but he's old. He's got 1 year left.
Yeah, he's certainly aging. I doubt they touch it though.
No. They're not going to do anything. They're going to stay put with what they've got. Like you said, it's all Vasilevsky. He's a guy who's going to play 60 games. He's one of the rare guys, I think, in this league that they expect to play 60 games with.
Yeah, and especially with like all the weird breaks that we're getting here, it's not as important as it.
And who knows even if we're going to play 60 games next season?
Right,
that's another question mark too. So
I know they want to play 82, but I don't think that's realistic. It's iffy, but at the same time, I will say a lot of people said that these playoffs could not be pulled off, and that like there's no way that this would finish, and it ended up being a pretty good playoff.
Yeah. I'll tip my cap to the Dallas Stars for sure. As far as Tampa's concerned, I think they're just going to go find themselves, a third stringer. I think a guy who's been in this organization before who'd be a good fit at a number 3 spot would be Louis Domingue. Throw him back in there, and
sure.
There you go.
Mike Connon's there too. You could always just re-sign him. He's UFA. The Toronto Maple Leafs have made some noise about their goaltending position. Of course, they signed Jack Campbell, and Frederik Andersen's there for one more year. Frederik Andersen has never won a playoff series with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and
is he 0-8 in games?
I want to say he hasn't been bad, but in the playoffs he's never been the reason they lost. But obviously he's never been the reason they won, and that's a problem when you've had so many opportunities. It's a one-off, whatever. You can look at each of these individually and go, well, it's just it's a one-off. But when you start to build it up and you go, well, this is 4 playoff runs, and none of them have you looked like you're going to steal a series at all. And that, I guess that's a problem.
Yeah, that ultimately
especially the way the team is built, mostly around the offense and needing that goaltending position to kind of be able to make up for some of the lack of experience on defense.
Yeah, so let me ask you, being the Toronto Maple Leafs guy here, does Freddie Andersen stay with this team?
I think it'll really depend on how everything else kind of shakes out in terms of the goaltending position. I mean, what are you hoping to get for Frederik Andersen compared to like Matt Murray? And that, to me, that's kind of all right. Yes, one's a UFA, one's an RFA, but Frederik Andersen is the one that's signed. However, Matt Murray is he's on that fence of like, all right, is he really a full-blown starter or not? Whereas Frederik Andersen, absolutely, he's a top 15 starter in the league.
Yeah, no question.
Like throughout a regular season, he's been good. This last year wasn't his best year, but he's still a very good goaltender, and somebody who any team you could put him in there and you're going to get average to above average goaltending, which is about the top 15.
Yeah,
in there. Like occasionally he's a top 10, top 8 goalie, and occasionally he might slip to that like top 20, but he always is a starter. He always is going to give you a good night, and it just kind of obviously depends on what's in front of you. But when it comes to Matt Murray, Frederik Andersen, if you can't ask for a first round pick for Matt Murray, how can you ask for a first round pick for Frederik Andersen?
Yeah, this will be
like it would be a pure one-off trading a pure rental for that pick, especially if it's someone like Edmonton.
Yeah, Anderson's interesting to me because he's a guy that over the years has consistently faced more shots than any other goaltender, and so I'd be interested to see him in a team where they have a solidified defensive system in front of him,
sure,
and see how he plays.
Some guys go into a better defensive system and they don't play as well.
Right. Some guys like the shots.
Yeah. Some guys just thrive on those shots. But
yep. So and the other thing is too is I think if you want to make a change at the goaltending position, you have to do it before free agency hits, because I feel like all the big names that you're hoping to, if you're hoping to find somebody as good, if not maybe a little less of a quality goaltender than Freddie Andersen, you're going to have to do so early in free agency because they're going to get scooped up quick. So I think ultimately, Toronto does trade him. I think he gets moved somewhere. One team I mentioned in our last show was Minnesota. I think he'd be a great fit in there. I'd love to see him with that team.
He does. He has a modified no trade. 10 teams he cannot be traded to.
Yeah.
So I doubt Minnesota would be in that list, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he's one of those people that kind of hears the rumbling, the smoke before the fire, to see where he might be moved to, and then just puts them on their list, and kind of a dick move, like screw you guys. I'm not.
Well, I think usually they have to submit those at a particular time, like
whenever the GM asks,
by
basically.
this date.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sometimes though, it's like at the beginning of the regular season, they have to submit their lists.
Okay.
But
yeah,
that would be
to me though. If I'm Toronto, I would love to see them because I think they could probably get 6 years at $5 million a pop for Braden Holtby. You have a Stanley Cup winning goaltender.
Wow. Yeah. But
if you want to shake things up, I think he's regular season wise. I don't think Holtby is as good as Freddie Anderson, but who knows? Maybe just going to a new place is going to reignite that spark that he took that team to the Stanley Cup.
That would be it would be very interesting bringing in Braden Holtby into Toronto. That's an interesting thought. That would be a very Toronto. It wouldn't be a very Dubas thing, but it'd be a very Toronto thing. Like go out and get a guy after he's been really good.
Yeah, or maybe they go ham and they just trade for James Reimer, bring him back and say go to town.
Oh gosh. Well, remember, the Leafs went out. They signed Curtis Joseph in free agency when he turned 31. Right, and that was in 1998. And then after Curtis Joseph, they went and signed Eddie Belfour when he left. So they do have a history of bringing in some goalies with some experience who come in and play really well. Curtis Joseph and Ed Belfour were two of some of the best goalies in that era.
And if you're Braden Holtby too, right? There's only a handful of teams that I think are ready to compete that are looking for starters, like bona fide number one starters, and where maybe Holtby doesn't want to go to a place where he's got to be like a 1A, 1B. Maybe he wants a place, and I think Jack Campbell is still very serviceable for 30 games.
Oh but, yeah, I think that Jack Campbell could play 35 to 40 too if he was asked. I think he's just starting to come into his own. He kind of reminds me
late bloomer.
Granted, he was taken 15th, 16th in the
first
draft.
round by Dallas. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Craig Anderson though. Like just kind of stepped onto the scene at like a late age into your like late 20s.
Tim Thomas,
and
he's a late goaltender.
And hey, sometimes it works. You just need to develop a certain way, and it works. And because you haven't had all that time spent in net in those grueling games, you're able to play a little bit later into your career, like we saw with Tim Thomas, like we see with Craig Anderson. So,
and I like Jack Campbell,
and he's not that old. He's only 28.
Right? Yeah, not that old either. So Jack Campbell still got a few good years left in him for sure.
It would be odd if they come back with the same pairing.
It would be, absolutely.
After everything that happened, losing to the Blue Jackets, you look at it and you go, how can you not shake something up?
Yeah, I think the goaltending spot is the easiest to shake something up because we know finding top 4D is going to be very, very hard. And right now it's easy to find another goaltender. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's go Vancouver Canucks. They're an interesting one because who knows if Markstrom's going to re-sign with them. And then they also, obviously we saw how Thatcher Demko played in the playoffs. He looked great. And then you've got below him Michael DiPietro playing in the minors. They've got young goalies. Somebody's got to come in and kind of stabilize that in my mind, though, yeah?
Yeah, I think ultimately, all this huge goalie carousel is going to be determined by what Jacob Markstrom does first. I think he's going to set the bar, and then everything else is kind of going to... All the other dominoes are going to fall after he signs, wherever it is, right? We've heard rumors of Detroit that they're going to make a huge pitch for him. I don't really think Stevie's going to do that, but that's just my opinion.
Interesting. They need a goalie. So.
They do, absolutely. But
they're going to spend on a goalie. Like one way or another, they're going to spend on a goalie.
Yeah, but whether or not they want to go and spend on a...
Yeah, I guess if you really want the money,
right.
You can chase... what would you sign Jacob Markstrom for? General, like if any team out there, I'm thinking somewhere between $5 and $6 million is probably what he can.
Yeah, I think if Leonard's going to get 5 and 5, again, I think he's taking a little bit of a discount because Vegas doesn't have any state tax and he wants to stay there. So yeah, he's going to take. Let's say
basically he went and signed for I
think $6 million is fair.
Yeah,
but ultimately, you know what? Maybe Detroit's willing to give him more term than maybe any other team is because I don't think.
If you're willing to give 7 years, but
I don't think Vancouver's going to give 8. But
Yzerman has not been an idiot.
He hasn't, and I don't think he will. But again, these are all rumors that we're hearing, and I don't think Yzerman's going to sign Markstrom. I think he might go out and get, like I said, a guy like Talbot that he can put in there for maybe 2-3 years.
Because you still have Jonathan Bernier, who's serviceable.
Absolutely,
you're not really trying to win.
No, and he wants to collect assets, and why go spend money on a goaltender when you can use that cap space to collect assets? We'll take this cap like Mark Stahl.
Right. Go sign an older goalie who will sign for 1 year, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Then you can give that older goalie 5 years.
Yeah. But,
sorry, $5 million.
Right.
Not 5 years.
No, I knew what you meant. Yeah. Yeah, but to me, I think Markstrom, I do think he re-signs with Vancouver. I think he's going to take a look and really, it's going to come, to me, it's Calgary or Vancouver for Markstrom, and I think he's got a great thing there in Vancouver, and I think they want him to stay. And now I'm hearing rumors of, OEL possibly hitting Vancouver, and that would be just...
See, and when it comes to Markstrom, it's one of those things where you're like, this doesn't need to end.
Right.
Don't leave. They stuck with you. I mean, the Canucks stuck with him. Even when it didn't look like he was going to develop into as good of a goalie as
he was mediocre coming out of Florida.
They kept going to him and developing him and giving him opportunities. And now, he's in the position that he's in because this team believed in him. And not to mention, it's a great place to live. They're an up and coming team. It's obvious that they're going to be successful. Now it's just a matter of like, do you want to play for a team with these 2 younger goalies coming up? And does Vancouver want to sign you for 5 years knowing who's behind you?
Yeah, and that's the thing too.
I'd say yes. I'd say you sign him to a reasonable deal and you can always trade him.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving him any kind of no trade clause.
Well, maybe a 10 team or something like that. But ultimately, though, what'll be interesting for me is, if they do give him, say, 5 or 6 years, what's going to happen with Demko? Is Demko going to want to resign? I know he's an RFA after this year, but... maybe Vancouver explores the possibility of moving him.
Maybe.
Because they've got DiPietro, too. So.
I just think and DiPietro's no guarantee. He hasn't...
No, he isn't, and neither is Demko. I know he had a great playoff, and he's had a pretty good regular season, but...
Jim Carey had a really good regular season.
So, you never know. But
if you don't know what I'm talking about, go up to the 1995 Vezina Trophy winner, Jim Carey. The Vegas Golden Knights, we talked a little bit about Robin Lehner re-signing there. We know that it's unlikely that Marc-Andre Fleury remains with the team. I think after kind of what happened, there was a little bit of drama.
A little.
And I don't think that they're going to be willing to commit $12-13 million to that goaltending position. They
don't have the cap space to
pulling to Montreal.
Yeah.
So Marc-Andre Fleury's got to go. Now, there also is the other flip side of the coin. What if they can't move Marc-Andre Fleury and they can't re-sign Robin Lehner because of it?
Yeah, I think
they could certainly trade someone else.
Right. You could explore the possibility of moving a guy like, I don't know, like Riley Smith or Marcia Show.
You do not want to trade those guys.
I know you don't want to, but I'm just saying, like,
just to bring in a second goaltender.
I know, but maybe you're like, hey, Alex Tuck has been looking pretty good. Let's give him a little bit more of a shine.
But that's who you're.
Well, yeah,
he's a UFA, and so he'd be the easy one to move.
Yeah, again, there's pieces, but again, Vegas has been hard pressed to find themselves a number 2 center, so maybe they're a little bit more hesitant with Stasny.
Sure.
Ultimately, I think Vegas is probably going to be willing to eat up to half this contract just to get him moved to a team, and I mean, honestly, I don't really know where he goes. I've heard, rumors of Chicago. He would be a good fit there with, Corey Crawford if he can re-sign.
Trade him to Seattle.
Seattle, yeah. Maybe he ends up going back home to Pittsburgh.
This
who knows?
Poor guy.
Yeah, I feel bad for him for sure because he was a soldier. He came in. He was like, okay, Pittsburgh, yeah, cool. I'm good with going here because I had my runs.
Pittsburgh kind of screwed him a little bit. I mean, it's business.
They backed him in the corner. Was like, hey, you're going to take a hit for the team.
Yeah,
like as a guy,
thanks for helping us get to the conference finals and doing so well. Right. And then you start your rookie guy over you, and then we're going to let you go to what they're thinking. All right, this team's going to be really bad, and then what do you know? He's the freaking savior. He crushes it for a few years, and then you know what? Nah, we're going somewhere else. We're not going to give you any time. He's kind of gotten screwed a couple times. Granted, I would take $7 million a year, and you can screw me as many times as you want.
There you go. Yeah,
not in a prostitute kind of way though, but
yeah. You know what? I think he gets traded at some point. I think they do find a way to get him out of there. Now, I will say, as far as a backup situation, then you have to go find somebody to play backup. And one name that my heart would love to see in with this team playing backup, and you could sign him for a 1 year deal, would be Henrik Lundqvist. Because I just think when I think of Lundqvist and the King, I think of big city, flashy.
Yeah.
just that style that he has, and I think Vegas is kind of like that.
I mean, and he took that buyout, so he got his money.
He's getting paid $5.5 next season to go away, and so he'll take him. I mean, he's made $100 million in his career anyway. So again, he
hasn't said anything about like, all right, I'm going to retire. Or I'm gonna play,
I do think there's probably a 50-50 chance that he's going to, I don't want to say retire from the NHL, but he'll call it quits, go back to Sweden maybe. I think that's still on the line to go play with his brother.
League or something.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to what he wants to do if he feels that need to really still, pursue the cup. Because I think, a team like Colorado, Vegas, there's going to be a few teams that are going to be on a short list of teams he's willing to sign for if he does decide to stay.
Yeah, he's one of those Dan Marinos.
Yeah,
like
Dan Marinos.
One of the maybe one of he might be. I mean, the best goaltender to not win a cup. There's probably very few that would be ahead of him on a list like that. You could point to maybe like a Curtis Joseph who has a ton of wins and happened to be on a lot of bad defensive teams, but was basically the guy. He was the defense and the goaltending in a lot of those teams. What goalies can you think of that have been as good as Lundqvist has and haven't won a cup? I mean, guys who have won Vezinas and not just, you're not talking. How many Vezinas does he have? 3?
No, he's only got 1.
Does he only have the 1? Well,
yeah,
he probably should have won more. His team sometimes wasn't as good, but
okay. So Kevin Weeks put a little list up here in 2015, the best goalies to never win a cup. Right?
Okay.
He's got Cujo up there. He's got probably my favorite goalie to never win a cup, and that's Roberto Luongo.
That's a fair goaltender, but Roberto Luongo, I don't think that he. Granted, he had seasons where he was better than Lundqvist, but I don't know if over the course of his career you'd say Luongo was better than Lundqvist.
I don't know.
Luongo played for some dirty Canucks teams and couldn't win the cup.
Yeah, but Lundqvist he also played with some really bad Florida
teams. He did play for some, yes,
fantastic. So
Lundqvist played for. He never really was on a Rangers team where you were like, this team is going to win a cup.
No, I will say when they went to the conference
when they went to the cup, it was because of him.
In the cup, yeah, it was all him. Absolutely. Other guys on this list, right? Ryan Miller. There's a guy.
Which again, Ryan Miller, he was very good. But I just don't think that he was on the same level as Lundqvist.
No, not at all. John Van Breebroek, Kolzig, again, not as good. Ron Hextall.
Yeah.
Like he could be up there. Yeah. Kiprusoff. There's another guy. And then, of course, that's
and when it comes to someone like Kiprusoff, really, really good for 4 or 5 years, right? And that was it. I think Lundqvist, for my money, you can hit us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Is there a better goaltender than Henrik Lundqvist who hasn't won the cup? Let us know what you think. Let's move on to the Washington Capitals. We've got 2 teams left. The Washington Capitals are moving on from Braden Holtby, and it will be Phoenix Copley and Ilya Samsonov taking that net together. Most likely Ilya Samsonov will be that. I guess the premier starter there. Maybe they share the net. Maybe they bring somebody else in. What are the Washington Capitals going to do here?
Yeah, Samsonov's the guy. He's getting an extension, right? He's going to be their number one.
I hate that he says his name different, Samsonov. I can't look at that. I can't look at that name and not think Samsonov.
It's understandable.
Like Sergei Samsonov was he played for the Bruins and the Hurricanes. A little like 5'6" guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. Copley. He's got 2 years at 1.1. I think they would like him to be the backup, but I don't think they want him ultimately to be the backup.
They would like their backup to only make $1.1 million.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he was in 27 games, a .905 save percentage. He wasn't awful.
I think they need somebody else in there. They need a guy who can be a 1B because Samsonov, he was streaky to me.
He's only 23.
Right, yeah. So I want a veteran guy. You can help develop this young kid. And when I think about that, I think of Russians. I think a lot of teams, you notice that Russians, they always like to go on teams and groups. I think Anton Khudobin would be the guy here for me.
Wow. If Anton Khudobin goes to the Washington Capitals, he's going there as the starter. After what he did in the playoffs,
Well,
he is going to...
I don't know if you want him to be this... I don't think he'll sign anywhere and be a starter.
You don't think there's a team out there who's going to go, you know what, we'll go 3 years on you or 2 years on you and give you starter money.
But at 34 years old...
That's 2 years.
Maybe.
2 years, 2 years, $5 million for Qdoban.
Maybe. But again, I think he would be a great fit because, again, there's that rush connection with
the rush
Kuzi,
connection I like.
You know, Samsonov. That would be a great mentoring spot for a guy like that. But again, yeah, I do agree. I think, you know, when he goes in there, he's going to expect to at least play 40 games half the season.
Yeah.
So
he's not going to go backwards from the situation that he's in right now.
No. But I mean, he was a 30, 40 game guy anyway.
And I could see him being there. I could see him re-signing in Dallas too. But
yeah, absolutely could.
Especially after going to the Stanley Cup Finals and 2 games from winning the cup.
Dallas has got a lot of problems though, signing some younger guys. But
yes,
we'll see how that.
They've got a little bit more on their plate, and that's where a guy like Qdoban will probably get snatched up too quickly to where the Stars won't be able to do anything. But also, you look at the Stars system and you go, yes, Qdoban had a pretty good last year in Boston when he was backing up Tuukka Rask, and Tuukka Rask got hurt, and he played pretty well, and that's why Dallas was willing to bring him in. But ultimately, Dallas kind of created Qdoban, at least the Qdoban at the high level that we saw. Like their defensive system, I mean, as far as these playoffs went, they were probably the best defensive team out there. And the way that they played top to bottom throughout their lineup, they play such a good team defense. That is going to pad your goaltender's stats immensely. Now, does he go to somewhere like Washington where they play a much looser system and be able to succeed the same way? That would be my question. Now, and with Peter Laviolette coming in, Peter Laviolette has relied upon good goaltenders. So I don't think you're wrong that they're going to want to bring somebody in. That's not a bad choice. Last, but certainly not least, the Winnipeg Jets. They're one of the easier ones because we know that Vezina Trophy winner Connor Hellebuck is hanging out back there, and he'll be there for another 4 years minimum. What do they do with their backup, though?
I don't think they do much. I think they
don't have one right now.
Well, they got Brissois, but...
Well, he's a UFA.
Yeah, he's a UFA. Maybe they re-sign him.
He's been in there his whole career, so...
Yeah, they do have some money to play with, which is nice, for Vancouver.
Oh, no, he was with Edmonton, that's right.
Was he? Yeah, okay. I mean, they've got $15 million in cap space, but I think their concern is going to be on two things: finding, a top 4 D-man and finding a number 2 center. That's where their biggest concern is going to be. And so, this could be a situation where you could get, a Mike Smith, a Jimmy Howard, come in for very minimal $750,000, $800,000, play 1 year, and see what happens. You don't have to really bet the farm.
Just bring them all in. Yeah. Sign them all to $1 million deals, and you can bury them. I mean, really, nothing's going to happen with Winnipeg till they figure out what to do with Patrick Laine.
That's very
true. Will Laine be dealt? I know they're asking for 2 first-round picks, a prospect, and a roster player or something like that for Laine, which I'm not giving them. But
for a 40-50 goal scorer, you're not?
No, thanks.
Okay.
2 first-round picks, a roster player, that means a top 6 forward, and a prospect. No, thanks.
Okay.
Good player, but no thanks.
That's fair.
I'm not completely sold on Patrick Laine in terms of being somebody who can be that guy.
No, I don't think so either. But.
And so I'm not trading my whole farm for a guy who is a very good player. He is a point per game player, but he just hasn't gone to the level that I would hope that he would go. He had 44 goals. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but he
would have had 30 goals again this last year. You have to think about
it. The year he had 40-some goals, he had nobody playing center for him. This year, he was bouncing between the first and second line. Ultimately, I think most of the season he played on the second line with no centerman.
And he's better defensively now, so I think he's a better hockey player now.
Put him...
And I'm not... This isn't discounting that Laine is good. Now, of course, you're always going to say you want a ton for a player, expecting that you'll probably get a little less than your top value. Nobody's going to come out and say, we're hoping for a second rounder, a decent prospect, and you're not going to do that. You're going to say, hey, this is everything that we want. Of course, a first rounder. To me, a first rounder, a B level prospect, and a top 9 forward. like I'll just like a guy who was traded recently, like a Kapanen.
Okay.
Kasperi Kapanen is the type of guy that like I could see being involved in that trade, where he's still somebody that can slot into your top 9, maybe your top 6. He's not as good. You get your first round pick, you do that, and maybe a second round pick in there too. 2 first round picks is a lot to give up for somebody.
Yeah, I think ultimately they would probably
and a prospect.
Yeah, I think ultimately they'd settle for a decent draft pick, second rounder, and like a top centerman, right? I mean, you could think of a team like Nashville. Maybe they're like, okay, well let's deal Johansson now.
Wow.
And line A for Johansson, you could maybe do a 1-1, or maybe throw in like a third rounder with Johansson. And
I think you need to do Johansson in a first.
Okay,
That's probably,
I mean maybe, but yeah,
that's probably what you'd have to do.
But to the goaltending situation, they're going to hang tight and just see where the market goes and deal with their
no panic
up front.
there.
Yeah, no panic. They've got the Vezina winner. So,
all right, that is the goaltending position. Every single team across the NHL. If you missed the other shows, subscribe to the show. Go back and listen to those. They're just a hoot. We'll talk to you guys soon as the draft is coming up. We'll let you guys know a little bit more about what we're going to do for the draft. Talk to you soon.